Thanks to all the organizers of this terrific program. This has really been a great day, and I certainly have learned a lot through my participation in this particular opportunity. I want to sort of motivate this discussion. This panel is supposed to look at the issues of inequality, particularly as they relate to economic growth. And that's one of the topics I think we've been sort of discussing around throughout this morning, but we're going to try to address it a bit more specifically today. I want to motivate this discussion by first coming up with a couple of observations. One is that over the last 2 decades, economic growth is largely considered more of an urban phenomenon. What you've seen is phenomenal sort of growth, particularly in a lot of large cities. But part of what has been sort of typified by this growth is a very sort of uneven income distribution. You've seen growth at the top of the income spectrum, and then you've seen growth at the bottom of the income spectrum. And what's been being sort of priced out in this is sort of the middle class. And so when you look at particularly large world-class cities today, a considerable concern is what happens to the middle class. And if you think of Chicago, the arc of Chicago's history, Chicago was largely defined as a community, a city of neighborhoods. That's one of the things we prided ourselves on. And one of the things that you have concern today is when you look at particularly areas that have been hard hit by deindustrialization, particularly the African American communities on the south side, is the loss of that sort of middle class that used to be such a key bedrock of Chicago's definition. I think what I've heard today, and I think what's great about being on the last panel is Chatham is trying to really change that narrative. And one of the ways in which they're trying to do that is by investing in their own entrepreneurship, having a vision as to what they want their community to be in the future, and a sense of sort of like of purpose, I think, moving forward. I think the opportunity, from my perspective, for Chicago is wouldn't it be great as a city we could define ourselves in the future as being a world-class city that also celebrates having vibrant middle-class neighborhoods once again. That could be a real sort of opportunity for us. But I think what we have today and the opportunity, particularly with our esteemed panelists, is the opportunity to also talk about what the role of some of the major institutions are in sort of making that vision come forward. One of the themes that we heard throughout this morning was the sort of decline in these neighborhoods wasn't overnight, and building them back up isn't going to be an overnight experience. So one of the things we have to have is a sense of how do we get patient capital into these sorts of communities? How do we have a long-run strategy that's going to last more than a few years? And I think to answer this, we're incredibly fortunate. We have 2 people who are at the forefront of being leaders in this sort of thought exercise. So Andrea Zopp is the deputy mayor of Chicago, in addition to having an incredibly distinguished career in private industry. She's a person who I know has been an outspoken leader in talking about issues of inequality and economic growth within Chicago. And Terry Mazzani has been the long-term CEO of the Chicago Community Trust, and I think everybody has seen Terry throughout the town and sort of leading the trust as being a real voice for how the city can develop and sort of what issues of inequality, what issues of growth look like.